Are we getting our scary high-capacity magazines back? That is what we're going to talk about today, as a big decision came just a couple of days ago from the D.C. Court of Appeals. Not to be confused with the U.S. Court of Appeals, but the D.C. Court of Appeals, which ruled that high-capacity magazine bans were deemed unconstitutional for a multitude of reasons. So let's go over those reasons that they cited, what this means for New Jersey and other blue states like it, and what we should expect moving forward. But first, if you are new to the channel, my name is Jay Casa, and if you get any value out of this video, please do me a favor, hit that like button down below, and also consider subscribing, because still like over 80% of you that watch my videos are not subscribed. Please, it is a free, quick, and easy way to support the channel and help me get more videos out to you guys. Also, if you have not checked it out yet, my new podcast, the Behind Enemy Lines Show, I'll put a link to that in the description box down below. Go check it out. Available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it. We talk about everything Second Amendment related here in a state like New Jersey, where we're always fighting for, protecting, and defending our Second Amendment God-given right to self-defense. Now, let's go over the case cited and ruled on in this D.C. Court of Appeals, which is considered a more liberal-leaning court. The case is Tyree Benson versus the United States, with the District of Columbia as an intervener. So Tyree Benson, a little bit of background for you, was arrested in October 2022 during a stop by the D.C. Police Department. Police approached Benson and two other men on suspicion of criminal activity. Benson fled on foot, and when officers caught him, they conducted a search, which Benson later challenged as a Fourth Amendment violation, for what it's worth. Now, they recovered a 9mm Glock equipped with one of those long 30-round magazines. Benson did not have a license to carry the pistol outside the home. Benson was then indicted for 4 felony counts in the D.C. Superior Court, and after a round of appeals and other Second Amendment cases going towards the good guys, they decided to challenge the 10-round magazine capacity limit in D.C. on Second Amendment grounds. So the briefs were filed starting late 2023. The case was then stayed in 2024 pending a Supreme Court decision in the United States versus Rahimi case, which was decided in June 2024. Then this case was resumed. Oral arguments occurred on December 12th, 2024, and the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, which prosecuted in Superior Court under the Biden administration, then conceded and flipped sides on appeal that the magazine ban violated the Second Amendment under Bruin's text and history test and standard. So this was, of course, because of the change in the Oval Office with President Trump appointing Judge Jeanine Pirro, he named her as the U.S. Attorney for D.C., along with work from Harmeet Dillon and Pam Bondi, some of which have gotten arrows thrown at them recently from our own side. More on that later in this video. Now, the District of Columbia, as the intervener, continued to defend the ban, of course. Also, according to the Four Boxes Diner YouTube channel, which is awesome, I'd go check it out if you've not already, the Trump DOJ is no longer prosecuting federal crimes of people that have magazines over that 10-round capacity. Now, on March 5th, 2026, only a couple days ago, in a 2-to-1 decision with the majority by Associate Judge Joshua Deal, who, I hope I'm saying that right, is a Trump appointee, and the dissent was by Chief Judge Anna Blackburn Rigsby. The court struck down the ban as unconstitutional. It reversed all convictions for Mr. Benson and struck down DC's outright ban on magazine capacity limits, finding that it violates the Second Amendment, as we all know and agree with, under the framework of both Heller, Bruin, and Rahimi. Now, I looked over some of this ruling myself and found some interesting and key points. It's like over 80 pages. I'll link to it in the description box down below. And truth be told, full disclosure, I am no attorney. I'm an idiot, so don't listen or take any legal advice from me. This is just the key points that I got from the decision. Now, first is magazines as arms. So the court held that magazines of all sizes, including those holding more than 10 rounds, are protected arms under the Second Amendment's plain text. You would think that implying magazines as actual arms would make it easier for them to infringe on our rights to have them, but in this case, it actually helps us. This definition, from what I understand, is set by the Bruin decision because it is an essential component of the firearm. You can't shoot it without a magazine, pretty much, which protects it from unconstitutional restrictions. They rejected arguments that such magazines were mere accessories or practically harmless without other components, comparing that logic to like banning triggers or firing pins or something like that. Second is the common use standard. So magazines with over 10 rounds are extremely common, as we all know, in the United States, with hundreds of millions of them in circulation, and about half of all magazines are owned by civilians, not the military or police, right? They come standard with all firearms pretty much and are commonly used for lawful purposes like self-defense, target practice, hunting, and just marksmanship in general. Now, the DC government tried to argue that just because something's popular doesn't mean that it shouldn't be restricted. They attempted to make the analogy, and failed in doing so, that machine guns were once popular too, and yet those are still legally restricted. Now, of course, there are many, many more magazines out there than machine guns, and machine guns were never as popular as magazines, so this is not a fair comparison at all in my view. The court dismissed more DC arguments that they're unusually dangerous, which is also a standard set by Bruin, or rarely needed in self-defense scenarios as well. Now, lastly is the historical tradition standard that Bruin sets. There's absolutely no long-standing U.S. history or tradition of blanket bans on commonly used arms like these magazines. The court criticized attempts to analogize to outdated regulations as insufficient under the Bruin standard, which requires proof of firearm bans being present or at least analogous in historical tradition during the founding of our country. AKA, if they were not restricting these arms in a somewhat similar manner in the late 1700s, they should not be doing so now. Now, it's very easy to get caught up in a headline, but what does this all actually mean for New Jersey going forward, and potentially all other blue states with magazine capacity limits currently in place as well? Well, the first thing you should realize is that this is the highest quote-unquote state-level Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, not the official U.S. Court of Appeals. So this all means that this is not directly binding anywhere other than D.C., so don't go remove those mag blocks just yet. And yes, I do have a mag block in this, so please don't turn me into a felon tomorrow. This decision has not set precedent anywhere for New Jersey or anywhere else for that matter. However, the big news is that we may now have what's called a circuit split when it comes to magazine capacity limit cases. Other more leftist-leaning circuit court of appeals like the Ninth Circuit out of California have ruled that restricting our magazines to 10 rounds is just dandy from a constitutionality perspective. And since DC is not officially a state, as much as Democrats wish that it was, this DC Circuit of Appeals is actually under federal purview, so it does create a federal circuit split, which could and should lead to the Supreme Court of the United States getting involved, which would be a massive win for our Second Amendment rights. Now, this Benson case is also highly persuasive because it rigorously applies that Bruin standard, the text and the history test, the same standard that federal courts like the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit will have to apply in cases like Cheeseman versus Platkin, which challenges the New Jersey assault weapon ban, as well as New Jersey's magazine limit. Now, a U.S. District Court judge in July 2024 partially invalidated that New Jersey assault weapon ban, specifically just for Colt AR-15s, as far as I understand, but they upheld the mag ban at the time, citing that public safety and historical parallels somehow came into play there. Now, both sides then appealed to the Third Circuit, which granted en banc review late 2025, with more future hearings scheduled here in 2026. That case is still pending. Now, Benson could certainly influence this case, as challengers like ANJRPC, FPC, and others are likely to cite this. Now, the U.S. Department of Justice filed an amicus brief in late 2025 supporting the challenge to New Jersey's bans, arguing they failed the Bruin standard, as we all know they do. If the Third Circuit follows Benson's logic, New Jersey's mag ban could be struck down, and some would even say it's likely at this point. Now, even though in the short term nothing changes for us here behind enemy lines, a Third Circuit ruling could come soon and could potentially remove our magazine ban, leading then to an injunction. Now, if it's upheld, it will be appealed to SCOTUS, where Bruin author Mr. Clarence Thomas has shown interest in taking on magazine capacity bans, especially if there's a circuit split. I would like our chances. Now, this Benson decision is a huge win for the Second Amendment, starting with any legal gun owners in DC, which other than government employees can't be too many if I had to guess. But more importantly for the rest of us, it also weakens the defenses of laws like New Jersey's magazine capacity limit and bolsters the pending challenge in the Third Circuit, that ANJRPC versus Platkin case that I mentioned and that we're waiting on. Now, once again, I'll cite that YouTube channel, The Four Boxes Diner, which is excellent. Go check it out. He mentions that SCOTUS is already considering taking on a magazine limit case out of California. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. And as we wait for that ANJRPC/Cheeseman case and the Coons versus Platkin case that I made a video about a little while ago, which challenges the sensitive places law that New Jersey has, our Second Amendment rights here and throughout the country could be looking at massive, massive positive changes. Now, Four Boxes Diner also mentioned that a few months ago, Judge Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for D.C., who many 2A supporters and advocates were hating on only a few weeks ago for making some dumb comments on Fox News about taking guns from criminals or whatever.
You bring a gun into the district, you mark my words, you're going to jail. I don't care if you have a license in another district, and I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else.
She filed a major brief claiming that magazine limits violate the Second Amendment. And this decision is a ripple effect, as he called it, as a result from that briefing. Now, because of what Judge Jeanine Pirro did, along with other 2A, let's call them advocates within the Trump administration, they have now caused the D.C. Court of Appeals to rule in our favor, creating the aforementioned circuit split, which increases the odds of the Supreme Court of the United States, which is more conservative than liberal because of President Trump, taking on a magazine capacity ban case and potentially turning these quote-unquote high-capacity magazines into just standard capacity. Now, this is why patience is key, and politics is unfortunately always important. I understand some of you have been waiting for these sorts of cases long before I've been involved, and for years and maybe even decades. I get how it can feel like you're somehow always being sold a bill of goods that never comes to fruition, and that's frustrating. And it's very easy to just throw your hands up and claim nobody's on our side, F the system. This time is different. As a former failed president once said, elections have consequences, and President Trump has appointed so many Second Amendment supportive judges across the entire country, and it has really opened up the door for us to fight and battle these unconstitutional anti-Second Amendment laws within the court system. Now, the good part about that is that it opens up the door and allows us to reverse these laws without having to fight that battle in the court of opinion. You could use the Constitution, which is on our side. And what makes it even better is that it seems like the most anti-gun and leftist politicians don't have the slightest clue of what they're talking about when it comes to firearms, which leads to them always over-restricting, making it easier to challenge in the aforementioned court system and for us to win. Now, is every politician going to be as pro-2A as we are or may want to be? No, of course not. But do not let perfect get in the way of really, really good. Many things said by President Trump, Jeanine Pirro, others in the administration, has not been a good look in many ways. But as I said at the time, actions speak louder than words, and these are their actions, and they are good for our Second Amendment. Their actions have put our God-given right to self-defense at the precipice of a massive, massive win that we will be benefiting from for a long time. But as I mentioned, it will take time. So in the meantime, go train, God bless, and keep fighting. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you think, where this case is going to go. Is it just another bill of goods that you're being sold that's never going to go anywhere, or is this time different? I think this time is different. Let me know what you think. Would love to start a conversation with you. And go check, if you have not already, go follow me on social media, at JCostaUSA on Twitter, X, and on Instagram as well. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. God bless.